Hello, gamers, and welcome to another exciting edition of Game Warp. I'm Elwood,
I'm Kim.
and this is our review of Forza Horizon 4. Forza Horizon 4 is an open world racing game developed by Playground Games and published by Microsoft Studio for an Xbox exclusive, which of course makes us very excited because now Microsoft are pushing forward with exclusives and making them all accessible via the Game Pass, which has been a real sort of selling point as this has become a real tentpole title for the Game Pass. Now, while the game itself came out a week later for those of us with Game Pass, since then we chose to step back rather than just do this as like a day one review. We decided to give it a couple of weeks, allow the game to sort of settle into its flow because a large portion of this game is based on this open world environment. It's very much going to be controlled and developed by its players. Opening sort of thoughts on this one. I mean, this is the fourth Horizon title in the series, 11th installment in the Forza series in total. And this year, the big sort of selling point, other than the fact it's set in Britain, or more precisely Scotland, is the fact that we now also have changing seasons. So with all these exciting sort of changes to the game, I mean, what did you sort of think of this one, Kim?
I thought it was really good. I mean, I've never played anything in the Forza series, obviously, because I'm a very recent user of anything related to Xbox since I upgraded my PC this year. So, obviously, this is like a totally new title for me, and just jumping in, it's really nice. I think everything they sold in E3 or whatever was it E3 that we heard
Yeah, it
about
was
this?
E3.
Yeah. So everything they sold in E3 was really fun to see. I like the changing seasons. I didn't actually ever witness in my any segment that I played of the changing season cutscene. Did you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem because we've had one copy to share between three people in the office. So, um, with the actual game, I mean, we obviously have this introductory level where it takes you through like snippets of races you're going to do. It's a very weird sort of like long race that you do, and you go through different seasons. So you start off in autumn, then you go into winter, and then spring, and then summer. And you get little snippets of like the showcase races. So you're racing with like motocross players, and when you're first sort of starting off, your influence points go towards changing the seasons, and you once you get into the actual main Forza game, you will be put onto the timeline that they're working with. So yeah, I think it's every sort of 4 days or so they're changing the season at the moment. Though this could obviously change as the game obviously is out there a bit longer. But in as of the time of recording, I think as of tomorrow it's going to change from autumn to winter. So with each season, it brings a whole different set of changes and challenges to the environment. So whereas before you have like lakes, they suddenly become frozen in winter so they can be raced upon. You have obviously snow to deal with, whereas if you go into like autumn, you get rain and you get mud. Summer, you get these lovely sunny vistas to drive through and everything's lovely. And spring, you get showers to deal with. So each season comes with its own set of sort of challenges, and each one feels so unique and different. I mean, the whole landscape itself changes. So you see when autumn comes in, like all the leaves go golden, and you have
Yeah.
like leaves across the street. Just if you just take a moment just to look at the small little details, there's so much detail in these environments. It's absolutely stunning. And we're not running this through like an Xbox One X. We're just running this through a standard Xbox One or Windows 10 setup.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're running this through the most powerful machine, and it looks absolutely stunning. You would think it's running on a much more powerful machine, just the level of detail that you get here.
Yeah, and I think like what really sells Forza is the fact that like Forza 4 obviously is the fact that it changes that you don't really like there are a huge amount of racing that you can do, like different types. You can do street race, cross country, circuit, sprints, off road, all kinds of things. But there's also like little achievements that you can do. So you can go have like get barn locations where you guys search for hidden cars, which get sent back to the workshop and get fixed, and it becomes something that you can have. I mean, There are obviously the classic speed radar that, Need for Speed had before. I don't know if Forza had before. It's a very classic thing to have, like little challenges. And what I really like about this is the fact that if you want to take this as like a scenic drive through through the landscape, or just take a road trip, like a virtual road trip, you can actually do that. And there's like these scenic points that you can stop at, and it has this like little description as the camera pans over the area, and it's really cool because like you kind of have a little slice of like, just, oh, imagine you were on a road trip, this would be what you'd be doing, and you can have a relaxing moment instead of always being in the racing. So I think that there's like a really good balance of like, not only like it's for the casual gamer, but it's also like it's like for a casual arcade gamer, but also for someone who wants something a little bit more intense. You also have like more intense varying kind of races that, like, a lot of them unlock, and the levels level up fairly quickly, and you get unlock cars really quickly too, and there's a really wide array of cars that you end up having. I mean, I know that I think there's 3 brands. I think it was Toyota and Mitsubishi and something else that
Lexus.
Yeah, Lexus. Oh, well, Toyota and Lexus are the same. So yeah, so yeah, those cars are, they have licensing. They don't have license for them, so those cars are not available, obviously. But I mean, just looking at like the amount of cars there is, and there are like we're sharing a copy, and obviously I play with a stunt gamer every once in a while. I like sitting with him to play it, and it's just, he, being the stunt gamer, he's also our stunt racer. So he looks at the cars, and the fanatic in him is like, he sees all these cars that he's like, wow, these cars are so awesome, and I'm just like, question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's over 450 cars to choose from. Like yourself, I don't know the first thing about cars, but even if you know nothing about cars, you can still pick up and play. This is very sort of like an arcadey style racing game. So if you're a fan of like the Need for Speed games or like the Burnout games, this is really will appeal to you. It's very easy to pick up and play, and all the cars have different handling, so you can, by experimenting around, you can try and find like cars which suit your style of driving. At the same time, if you want to get into like under the bonnet and that, you can take the little customizations and you can tweak your cars to meet your sort of preferred specs. But it's nice the fact that even if you don't know what you're doing, you can just use the auto upgrade just to get your cars to the particular sort of tiers that you want it to play, the same as we've seen in the previous Forza games. So that's really nice to see that carried across again. The other thing that you also have, which is really great, is the fact you can do liveries as well as change the colors of your car. And saying that, I mean, at this point, we're just 2 weeks into the game being released, there is a staggering amount of talented artists already contributing material for this game. And anyone who's obviously seen our library of cars will know that perhaps due to my fault, there's a large selection of anime style themed cars, but you've got people doing like tributes to like favorite shows or just favorite sort of like famous racing cars, and it's really kind of incredible the fact that even if you don't have any sort of artistic sort of talent, you can still have like a really neat looking car just through the amount of artwork that people are uploading there through the community. And there are, outside the racing, there are other things you can do, like you can do photography challenges, you can form crews, and as Kim was saying, you can just go on like little scenic drives if you want, and there's no sort of boundaries, there's nothing that will sort of hold you in place. There's very few barriers that you can't smash through, so if you want, you can just drive in a straight line and go through trees and walls and whatever else in the way, and it's kind of fun to do that. And with the outside the racing, we've got things like the missions, which the first one sees you doing a number of stunt driving for a film production that's in place, and that's a lot of fun. And we obviously had to see the return of the showcase events, which this time includes a race against a hovercraft, the Flying Scotsman, a bunch of motocross riders. I mean, there's even a Halo themed special race on there where you get to drive the Warthog, which is also a vehicle you can buy in the game. And that race is really cool because you're sort of racing along and you see like the pelicans come down, and they even like replace your in-car sort of radio with Cortana from the game. So you're kind of like playing the Halo game inside a Forza game, and it's kind of a fun little nod for Microsoft, sort of honoring their two sort of properties there. So
Yeah. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I think one of the things I do want to talk about is that I think if you're an arcade racer, like I am kind of like a casual arcade racer, but I do play Need for Speed every once in a while. I'm still very much like I'm still learning about how to do the transition between the PlayStation controls to like the PlayStation 3 and 4 controls. So Xbox, like, this one is very similar to the new age, you know, where your L buttons are your shoulder buttons, right? Are the ones that, you know, accelerate and brake. And those are, you know, back then it wasn't. It was just, you know, like you press your X and then your whatever to brake. Yeah. So it's different. But I think that every single racing games has this thing, is there is this entry thing where you need to work out the controls and find, like, you know, the sweet spot, how things actually work and the reaction time. And I think as a comparison for me, I thought that Forza has a bit of a reaction slowness, and I'm not sure if it's because it's just so early in release that there's probably some sort of polish they need to put on it. Or it's just, you know, it's just a new game that I need to learn because, like, for me, I haven't played any Forza, right? So I don't know if you feel like it has any difference compared to previous Forza games. Like Forza Horizon, like Forza 3, maybe.
Certainly, I mean, in terms of the controls and stuff, I find it very similar to the controls we see in previous Forza games. I understand completely. I mean, because the layouts of the road compared to what we've seen previously, I mean, this is obviously British roads, so you got to get used to things such as roundabouts and the fact that we can't apparently build a straight road anywhere. So you constantly encounter these really sort of tight turns, so you find yourself constantly thrown into the barricades, and it takes a while just to get used to drifting around these corners and following your racing line, which is a new sort of challenge and something that we haven't really had to encounter in the previous games, because obviously they've been America and Australia set, and it's been sort of more sort of straighter roads, and not seen these sort of extreme right angle sort of turns that obviously the British setting brings to it. So I mean, certainly in terms of controls, I think it's I feel there's a period of adjustment where you obviously find that sweet spot for getting your drifts down, and it all comes down to the sort of car that you're driving. I mean, as we were talking about before we came on air, it's sort of like we were finding like the Super Impreza, it's just like really easy to sort of pick up and play, and then you play with something like the Viper, for example, or one of the sports cars, and you're finding yourself really sort of overestimating the amount of time and sort of reaction that you're going to have for those corners, and you just find yourself sliding off and taking out a field or something.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, every single car has a different reaction time, and I think that is done really well. Obviously, it's not as polished as games like, you know, Motorsport or like for an Xbox comparison, it would be Motorsport, or like in a PlayStation, it would be Gran Turismo or something like that. You know, like, these cars all do have different reaction times, and, you know, you take one car and you'll realize it's really drifty, and then the other car is... So it's still fairly authentic in that sense. Obviously, it's still an arcade game, so these things are, you know, more floaty. You know, they're not exactly genuinely authentic. But I think you make a good point in the roads, because what I mean by the controls is that I think that what I felt is that when I did street races or I did sprints or something, it always felt like the takeoff point of your car, it felt really like heavy. It felt like it took a really long time for the car to really get off a corner, or just get off the start line and to reaccelerate. Whereas, like, what was really weird was that when you did those, it was on, like, either, you know, on a paved road or whatever. Yeah. But when you did something like the cross country, it was really fast paced. It was just like everything was like, boom! You start, the car takes off, and you go on this bumpy ride uphill, and it's falling down a hill, and you're just like, it's just like curves and turns and swerving, and it just really, really adrenaline rushing. Whereas, like, the other one felt more like, you know, it was so, I don't know if it was the precision or the accuracy, or it's just so heavy for things that it felt a little sluggish. And I think that I still can't figure out whether it's just myself not having, obviously I haven't played the game as much as you have spent time with it at this current point that we're recording, but I mean like I don't know if it's because it's just taking me a little bit longer to really adjust to that, or if it's just like you said, it's the road conditions, you know, because because I every time I played it's been raining, so I think that has to do with the
No, that's just Britain. That's the only weather we have. I think this is the point where the game itself, it sort of straddles that line between being an arcade racer and a driving simulator, because it's not as anal as like the Gran Turismo games where it's like you must complete an A license before we allow you to these cars or these races.
Yeah.
It's not doing that, and at the same time it's not giving you this, you can crash into a barrier and just like keep going, like nothing's going to slow you down, you're like a rocket on rails that you would get with like the Burnout games, and that it's sort of straddling that line where it's giving you this simulation to a point, and at the same time it's still, remember, it's an arcade race, so it's got that pick up and playability, so it's not relying on all the stats as much as like as you said with like Gran Turismo and stuff, where you're sort of analyzing every little stat, like if my car weighs this much and if it's got this amount of front breakage then it's going to affect this. And with the Horizon games, it's, as I said, it's always very sort of like simple sort of stats you can look at and know what you're going to get.
It's a fun playground. It's like it's a fun playground to be in, and I think that is the essence of the game. And it's the same reason why I love Need for Speed. So I think Forza does a really great job. I mean, especially like with the unique setting and all that, it works really well for what it's trying to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, I'm no great racer. I'm not a, you know, no one says reviewing games means you need to be a fantastic gamer. At least I don't believe so. So, I mean, like, I think I did fairly well, but I mean, I think there's still, there's just so much. I think what's really nice about Horizon 4 is that there is a lot to offer. Like, it's a true bang for your buck, you know, especially because, you know, on the 25th, there's going to have, like, a creator that comes out, and you're going to be able to create races and stuff like that. And that's something, you know, for the very creative people out there who like to create maps on Trials or something, this might be one of the really nice settings for people to really, you know, flex those skills and kind of create this. I like this world of having the idea that's, you know, there can be endless material that you can engage in, and it really makes the bang for your buck in just, you know, not only the fact that this is part of Game Pass, but if you bought this game as like a full thing, and I believe there's probably going to be DLCs and stuff like that coming out, it's going to be a really fun game to just, you know, even if you don't play it constantly, you can always think about like just jumping in for a quick race every once in a while, and it's still going to have that replayability that racing games and open world racing games should have.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned already the DLC. I mean, the first DLC pack, keeping with a very British theme that we have running through this, is with the James Bond pack. So every car from the James Bond movies will be available as a DLC. I believe it is it's actually pretty reasonable. It's about £8 in the UK, so it's pretty reasonable. And so when you look at the barn finds, these are all British classics. Of course, when you go through one of them and find a Mini, perhaps may not have been worth all the trekking you did up and down the hills to find the barn, but yeah, it's a very distinct British flavour, and it's all the more surprising the fact we didn't see the old Chicken Chaser or the Robin Reliant included in the mix, because I don't know about yourself, but I really would have loved to done street racing in a souped-up Chicken Chaser, so... this is free reelers and just screaming down the Scottish highways. I think that would have been really cool to see just where we could have done. I mean, the fact you do obviously get the VW Beetle, and you have some really interesting choices, like you can get a white panel van, you can get a limo, and you can get like a VW camper van. And I'm wondering who is racing these people. And then when I was doing one of the live events that was on last night, and I mean, rooms can have up to 72 racers at a time. You can't collide with them. It just tends to ghost the other player, which is, I suppose, kind of nice. It cuts down on the trolls. But seeing with these Forza Horizon live events where basically you are driving en masse to a different location and you're completing different challenges. So this insane wacky races style situation where I was there in just what I thought was just like a cool race car, and you had like people turn up in every sort of variety of car, just careering down the motorway in this mass convoy, and it was like the greatest experience just to watch that and just play that. And I think the sheer variety of these cars, I'm not sure if you're going to probably use all of them, but just the fact that they're there just to do stupid things with is just a delight. I don't know, maybe buy yourself a white panel van and play Sky Engineer or something, and just pretend to drive around the countryside attending jobs at people's houses and stuff.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to offer here, especially like the shared world. It's gonna really, it's kind of like a hip thing now, I guess. A new thing that everybody likes to have a shared world, so you can actually like have virtual hangouts with your friends and drive down something with your friend, drive down the road with your friend or something, and
yeah,
it's gonna be it's nice. I think the idea of it is really nice.
Cool. So I mean, scoring for Forza Horizon 4. I mean, I'm gonna let you go first, Kim. Obviously, as your first sort of taste of the Horizon series, what did you obviously make of Forza Horizon 4 as sort of like your entry point into the world of Forza?
I was really impressed. So I'm gonna be saying that I'm gonna give it a 4, just because at this current stage, I still feel like it might not be completely my issue, but the fact that there are some very heavy controls that I feel like I'm not completely comfortable with right now. But, you know, I can be wavered to a 4.5 because everything works really well. I really like the game. Like it gets me exciting. It gets me really excited to go back into racing and into arcade racing and just, you know, jump in every once in a while and have some fun, you know. How about you?
5 stars, right across the board. From the moment we got this game, I mean, we were excited about this game when we saw it at E3, when we saw that wonderful trailer, and just like the trailer, just like the sound design of like the trailer, when you hear like clinking gears, you're seeing all the action on the screen, and the change in seasons all set to I Can See for Miles, and you were like, wow, this is incredible. And the fact it just lives up to all that we saw. The change in seasons is a wonderful new dynamic for the game, and I think it just keeps it all the more fresh. The fact that you're not just like racing in the same sort of environments, the fact that you can go down the same bit of road, but it's going to be completely different from one season to the next, and the different challenges, and just the little British idiosyncrasies that are in the game, such as the fact that we've got both types of phone box. We have those stupid plastic ice creams you see outside of convenience stores, and you have like beach huts, and there's all these like very like British things. I mean, while we were obviously sold on the idea that it was going to be Britain, and it is actually just Scotland that you're racing in, doesn't sort of detract from it. I think still, even though it's just, as I said, Scotland, you've got a wide variety of races, from like street racing. You go up on the moors and you can get into like the dirt and the mud and grime, and there's just I think there's something to suit any old sort of racing types, and I'm just really excited to see how they grow the world and more what the community do with it. So, but as it stands, I mean, this is just an absolutely stunning racing game, from the detail to the gameplay itself. It's just this is just a real sort of standout title, and the sort of Microsoft exclusive we want to be seeing more of. So yeah, 5 stars across the board for myself.
This wraps up this episode. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Head over to our homepage, thatmomentin.com, to read gaming reviews, to get gaming news every single day. Follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at Game Warp Podcast. You can check out our recent obsessions and snacks and all that stuff over on Instagram. Instagram.com/GameWarpPodcast. And when we do stream, in the rare occasion, you can check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/GameWarpPodcast. Till next time, bye!